Have we gotten to the point where, as a society, we stop caring about other human beings? If they're not our friends, our family, somebody that we know, we just ignore their suffering, even if they're bleeding to death on a train. All right, you remember that Ukrainian girl who was stabbed to death by that mentally ill man? Well, by the guy, the black guy in a red hoodie, because we don't know if he's really mentally ill or whether he's just evil. I'm not going to go into his motivations. I don't know what's going on inside his head. But we do know that afterwards he uttered something. It sounded like he was saying he got that white girl. Something like, I got that white girl. Something like that. That's what it sounded like he said. That's what some of the video imaging and audio sort of showed. There's also some longer versions of the video that shows a lot more of what happened in detail. Some of that appeared on X and it was taken down. At one point, they had a version where they blurred out her face when she was being attacked. And I could tell you that there's a much longer version out there. It's bad enough that this guy stabbed this woman completely unprovoked. But what happened afterwards was equally disturbing. So he stabs this woman, and she looks up in shock and fear. He walks away, walks forward, and she sort of slumps down, and she ends up on the floor. And there was 3 black guys behind her, one black woman sitting on the other side to her left, and the black woman just got up and left, got out of there, which I can't blame her. But the other black guys, a couple of them got up, and what was interesting is that she just lay there on the ground and nobody came to her aid. She was there for at least a minute before somebody came to her aid. And when somebody came, some guy, maybe a light-skinned black guy or maybe a Persian guy, I don't know. I don't know. But this gentleman took off his shirt trying to save her, trying to stop the bleeding. And he needs to be commended for that. At least I'm glad that somebody tried. And then there's a couple of white girls who showed up, white women showed up, tried to help. But it was a good minute or so before, and apparently the people who tried to help, they were in a different car. So the people around the woman after she was stabbed, the Ukrainian white girl, after she was stabbed, they didn't do anything. They just got out of there. One guy said, "Oh, this guy has a knife," and you can see pretty graphic material. I can't go into details right here, but I mean, it's like when you get into cities, they don't really care about one another. There's so many people around. I guess it's the bystander effect. People just assume that somebody else is going to step in and do something if there's a bunch of people around. But if you're one of the few people around, there's more pressure on you to actually do something. Because if there's a bunch of people around and you don't do anything, you're going to be less likely blamed. For one, it's not much of a community in urban areas, so you're not really held accountable by anybody, really. You don't have the elders in the community who will shame you, or the women in the community who will shame you if you didn't do anything, if you didn't help out. I mean, in a big city, you don't really know most of the people anyway, so it's hard to have that connection. It's hard. A lot of people lack the empathy when they don't really know the people. It's easier to walk away when you don't know the person, when you don't have to look at their face. It's a lot easier to walk away under those circumstances. And you don't have a community, so you don't have that social pressure. And in the smaller communities, you may know everybody, whether you like them or not. It might be harder to walk away from that person. And if you do walk away, it'll be noticeable. In a big city, if there's a bunch of people around, you walk away, you don't do anything, nobody's going to shame you. Nobody's going to blame you for not doing anything. I mean, you don't know her. You just mind your own business. And I had the mentality when I was in the city that, hey, I still had the mentality, I try to mind my own business, but I do what I can to help somebody, though. I'm not going to just not try to do anything. But typically, I try to avoid getting involved in other people's stuff. But in that situation, I'm not going to let somebody bleed out. I got a bag in the back of my vehicle I can use to sort of stop the bleeding. Or apply a hemostatic gauze or something. But anyway, in urban areas, there's often this culture where it's like, hey, well, that's not me. And I'm not just talking about race either, just talking about in general urban areas. But I have noticed that certain populations, people are more likely to help. I won't go into any details of that. Certain populations, most populations, people are willing to help. It's a bad look, guys. Really bad look. The urban areas is easier to walk away, but the bystander effect, when there's not a lot of people around, especially in smaller communities, then they're going to remember you. They're going to say, okay, well, Reginald, you were one of the few people there. What happened? Like, what did you do? Whereas if it's like hundreds of people around, it's like, oh, I just got the hell out of here, and nobody's going to really question me on that. So the dynamic's pretty different from rural to urban. There's some cultural differences there, but it's interesting, because you think of that white guy in New York who choked out that a black guy who was mentally ill and threatening people. That guy, he ended up facing a murder charge or something, or manslaughter charge or something. He got into some serious legal trouble. I think his name was Penny or something. I don't know. So people have that in mind. So it's like, okay, do I really want to get involved? And man, that attack happened so quickly. I think it's interesting how nobody tried to really help. Well, people did after the fact. People from another car. So yeah, share your thoughts on the bystander effect. People choosing not to get involved when someone is in trouble. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And don't forget the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. I think people need to see the truth. And it shouldn't matter if you like it or not. For example, on X, there's a lot of people making a lot of racist comments, but I defend their right to express themselves. Even though I don't agree with a lot of the rhetoric, even though it may be offensive to a lot of people have a right to express themselves. And people are definitely doing that. So, you can always use some type of story to feed into a narrative. Like there's this black woman who was killed by an illegal immigrant, and that story isn't getting a lot of traction either. So, but my main question is the bystander effect. Who do you think are the type of people who are most likely to get involved? Women tend to be more likely to get involved than men, but in this case, there's also a woman around who didn't render aid either. And when somebody gets stabbed, waiting a minute could be the difference between life and death. Every second matters. If you can stop the bleeding, you might be able to save a life. Share your thoughts.